Hi, I'm Michael Hartman.
I'm Naomi Liu.
And I'm Mike Rizzo. And this is OpsCast,
a podcast for marketing ops pros
and RevOps pros.
Created by the Mo Pros, the #1 community for marketing operations professionals.
Tune in to each episode as we chat with real professionals to help elevate you in your marketing operations career.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast, brought to you by marketingops.com, powered by the Mo Pros. I'm your host, Michael Hartman, and actually have a co-host today, just off of Mopsapalooza 2024. Mike Rizzo has joined. What's up?
Everybody.
How you feeling, Mike?
I am feeling really good. Thankfully, I took care of my mental and physical health for the last 12 months, and running Mopsapalooza for the second year allowed me to be more prepared for what it all takes. So I think by the end, I was like, okay, at least I feel, like I took care of the things that I needed to take care of. And
yeah, well, I think it was great.
Yeah.
I think it was great. I'm looking forward to hearing what the results were from. I'm sure you're going to be doing surveys and all that. So
yeah, all those are going out right now. So we're getting all the good feedback. The in-person feedback's always like, yeah, like we're having a blast. But then, you get people to get home, get settled. You can't please everybody. Something went wrong. I'm positive, right?
Yeah. Well, that's so. Big events happen, but I think it'll be. I think maybe you and Naomi and I need to do sort of a recap session and record it one of these days.
Yeah.
If we can actually get all three of us together.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, let's do that. But until then, we have a guest joining us today to talk about all things Salesforce, and that is Hannah Nodus. Actually, Hannah, I should have asked you how to pronounce your name. So you're going to have to tell me if I got it, like butchered it. So Hannah is currently product manager of marketing ops technology at Salesforce. Prior to joining Salesforce, she held multiple roles in marketing ops and marketing ops leadership at Lucid Software. Prior to that, she was a Salesforce technology consultant at PwC. I'm a former PW, not PwC guy, and had an internal marketing technology role at, is it Duker Ringwood Automation LLC?
All right, nailed the pronunciation. It's been great.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Hannah.
I'm excited to be here.
All right. I see. So I failed at one of my usual things, which is asking to make sure I get pronunciations right. So I'm glad I muddled through it all right. All right. So why don't we start with this? So one of the things we always like to hear is how people end up in these marketing ops roles. So I flew through a condensed version of your career journey. Could you share a little more about that? And something I always like to hear is like, are there key moments, right, where you went left instead of right, or right instead of left, or people that had outsized impact on where you think your career has ended up at this point?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, started the career in tech consulting with PwC, where I was implementing Salesforce solutions, variety of companies, industries, use cases. And I just loved being able to solve problems with technology as my medium. So it was Salesforce while I was there. And that's where I really fell in love with Salesforce. So I found that no matter the company, the use case, there was always a way to build the solution within Salesforce. So definitely was drinking the Kool-Aid, loved the product and all things Salesforce. So after I did the consulting path for a few years, I started to get a little burnt out. So I just began looking
at happens.
Yeah, the consulting world is so fun, a lot of challenges, but sometimes you just, you hit those moments. And so I just started looking at companies whose products I really loved. And that led me to Lucid Software. So I saw the posting about the marketing operations role, figured it would be a great fit because I had majors in marketing, operations, and information systems. So during college, so just thought I'd drop an application and see. And I remember during my interview with Peter Kirk, he was rattling off some of the systems in their tech stack and asking if I had experience. And I said, no, but I promise I learned systems very fast. And for some reason, they took a chance on me. And that's how I entered the marketing operations world. So during my time at Lucid, learned so much about marketing operations, technology, strategy, and most importantly, product-led growth. So really you want to give a shout out to Peter Kirk here, because he was an amazing advocate for the marketing operations world and just giving us resources to learn outside of like our day-to-day job. So encouraging us to learn about how other companies are doing marketing operations, and just was an awesome experience to learn as much as I could while I was working there, and loved the time at Lucid. It was a mid-sized company when I joined, so it allowed us to move fast, be impactful, and most importantly, I still got to work with Salesforce. So that was great. And that's actually where I am today. So I'm at Salesforce working at Slack. So Slack is owned by Salesforce, and I saw the marketing operations job open up, knew I had to apply. Salesforce was always my dream company, and getting to work at like for Slack, which is like a product led company, it was just my dream job to say the least. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I've been here for over like a year now, loving every minute. Scott Hicks is the director of our team. He's doing an outstanding job, like building our marketing operations strategy, tech, all the fun stuff like post-acquisition. And we're surrounded by awesome leaders, great coworkers, solving big new challenges every day, and getting to influence the roadmap of the Salesforce products that I love. So that's my journey. Kind of fell into the Salesforce like marketing ops world, but love it and hope to stay in the world for quite some time.
I love this.
Nice.
And not surprising to hear that you sort of kind of fell into it.
Right.
Like, that is the through line on every single marketing ops person.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like marketing and operations. I was like, I know both of those, so I'll apply, and kind of, learned as we went, and it was great.
That's awesome. Well,
there's
so
much I'm excited to talk to you about right now.
Yeah, right? I know. But so I just curious. So you mentioned Peter several times, right? Sounds like it was a big influence. I'm always curious. Like, so is he still someone you talk to on a regular basis? Is he like a mentor kind of thing? Has that been a valuable resource since you left, or where does that stand? Not to put you on the spot, but
Peter's awesome. He actually was based in Salt Lake as well. That's where I am when I was working at Lucid. So it was great to like get to go into an office and like actually connect in person. And then now he's actually at Mad Kudu, which is a super cool tool. We had used it at Lucid, and he works there. And so we're looking at phone attribution right now. And I reached out to him the other day, and I was asking his take on some systems that we had worked with in the past. So he's a really great person to like bounce marketing operations ideas off of all the time, or if I have a problem, to go to him. He's like a really great resource for sure.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's like something I would really encourage people out there. If you don't have someone you can go to, like the community is great, but if you have a connection, like a connection with someone, as a kind of a longer term mentor or coach, something like that, I think it's really valuable. So that's great to hear. I love that. So congratulations on that. All right. So you, I just want to make sure. So you're in a marketing ops role within Slack/Salesforce, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So everyone wants to know, like, what's it like under the hood? Like, what's it like in that role within the big, I don't know what, 300-pound gorilla. Is that the phrase?
the behemoth that Salesforce is.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go 500-pound gorilla. I feel like it's quite big.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I guess, like Slack has operated pretty separately. Like obviously there's a lot of work to like consolidate, like have us all be like one team, but it's a super unique environment here where it's almost like we have an inside scoop at all these different companies that have been acquired. Like you get to run ideas off of like, okay, the MuleSoft team, like what were you doing pre-acquisition? What are you doing now? Like Tableau team, talk to their like marketing ops team. Like it's been super awesome to get to work with like all these like insanely smart people who have insanely different experiences throughout the marketing ops world. Now I would say like, so under the hood Slack, like marketing operations, like the team that I'm working on, we are specifically in the like engineering, like of marketing ops team. So like what that actually means is we own a bunch of different systems that our marketers use. So like we like kind of like drive the roadmap, the strategy. In each of the different tools, we have a different level of like responsibility. Some of them were like admins, some of them were just informed. It just kind of depends. Where I've like been specializing is like within the web tech, ad tech systems as well here, and like working with really amazing stakeholders, like doing SEO stuff, and we're just like kind of work to drive like the roadmap, work with like problems. Some people on our team are doing like the new like lead routing, like using like all the cool Salesforce tools to like take advantage of like different data models, etc. So all things systems, our team really is focusing in around. And I guess like most importantly under the hood, which was a huge initiative to like drink our own champagne. So since like we got acquired, we've been taking advantage of the Salesforce suite. So like live chat, data models for lead routing, et cetera, like where there's an opportunity to use Salesforce products, we want to. And leadership's stance on that even was if that our tools like were not meeting our needs, if we felt like we could not use them, let's change the roadmap. Like let's make sure that like our tools can be like delivering like what we need it to do. So it's been super cool getting to influence like the roadmap with that for sure.
That's really cool.
That's really interesting.
So I'm sorry, going. I'm doing what I do best, and I'm going to ask questions and go off script. No, there's not a ton. For those that are listening, we don't have a script, especially me. But
definitely not.
Definitely not me. I'm terrible. I rabbit hole. I am super curious just about like, I don't know if you've heard me talk about it before. Michael has, some of our listeners have. It's been a long time since I've been on.
I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with this.
I've been fairly vocal about the notion that marketing ops isn't marketing. It isn't just marketing. It is so much more than that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the only one. I'm sort of like really pulling on the thread of quite a few other thought leaders in our space. In fact, I'm probably just borrowing from them and agreeing with them at this point. But I really love this idea of marketing operations is truly a product manager job at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. The difference is that your product is made up of many products, and you're enabling a go-to-market tech stack. I see, like in your intro and what you've been sharing with us, your job title is literally, if this is correct, product manager, marketing ops technology at Salesforce. Is that right?
That is.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm loving this. This just further validates not me, but like so many folks that are thought leaders in our industry are starting to talk more and more about like, how do you think about marketing operations outside the guise of like it's marketing, quote unquote, right? With all the quotes I'm throwing up. How is that translated for you in your career from where you were, right, doing marketing operations to sort of thinking now more as like this product manager and what you're doing now at Salesforce? Do you feel like it was basically the same? It's just your title changed, or are there some fair differences that like you can maybe speak to? I don't know. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
I feel like the one constant has been like solving problems with technology. Like I feel like that is the core of like all these different roles. Like even I'm doing like some solution engineer training as well. Like every path I've kind of pursued, it's like the same fundamental skills of like being able to get to the why, like being able to like understand like what is actually being asked of you, and then how can you use the technology that is available, whether you have it now, whether you need to acquire it, et cetera, to like build that roadmap and like actually deliver on those wants. So it's like, I mean, going back to consulting, it's like doing the same thing. Like, okay, they have a Salesforce system, no matter what stage they're in. Like, okay, let's build this roadmap together. Like, what are your requirements? What are the immediate needs? What are the enhancements? What are priorities? Like building that roadmap with those stakeholders, getting to the why, asking the right questions, and then, okay, like now let's build the technology. And that's kind of like what it is. Okay. At Lucid, like now you have a new tech stack. It's like looking at all these marketing ops tools, like how do they integrate into Salesforce? Like, okay, like you have so many systems, like how do you prioritize those needs? Like what actually needs to be done? Like just building those roadmaps and like using the tech to like aid that is like the constant throughout my career. And that's what it's like. A product manager, your tech stack just changes, like from role to role, is like how I would classify that.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah. Clearly, so for our audience, like, yeah, like you could just tell Hannah's body language, like she gets excited about this. I can already tell. So there's like, this is like your jam. Curious about one thing. So, do you ultimately report up to a marketing leader role, or do you report more into like an IT kind of function?
Marketing leader. And I was curious about that during my interview process. Like, oh, cool. Like I'm an engineer now. Like I'm on the engineering team.
Right.
You still are rolling up to marketing, which again, it's like, I feel like Michael, when we were doing the original talk of this, it's like a lot of like, we were talking is like, how technical do you become in a MOPS role? Like,
Yeah.
And it's interesting being on the engineering team. I was scared. Like I joined this job. I was like, I'm going to take it. I'll figure it out. Like I love Salesforce. I love Slack, but it's like, how much code am I going to need to know how to write? Like you're like on the engineering, but it's like building the roadmap and then working with like the strengths of the team. Like some of my team is so technical and amazingly smart, but it's like some of my team is like more high level project managing. It's like working with everyone together to like kind of drive these tech roadmaps. So it's like just varying levels of technical expertise. Even though we're on an engineering team, you don't need to be able to like code, write Apex, like all that stuff. Like you can be like higher level driving the strategy roadmap, thinking of like, how can we consolidate different tools? Like, how can we like find new opportunities as long as you're like anchoring to the business requirements?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, that just from my experience in B2B SaaS organizations and working with product managers, they are not 100% of the time are they developers, right? Or are they literal engineers, right? But they do translate the needs of the business to the needs of the user to the capabilities of the team and the technology, right? And the engineering team. And the engineering team says, hey, like there's limitations that we're going to face and they have to figure out how to balance all that equation, right? And to me, that's effectively what you're describing as a product manager in marketing operations. You're translating the needs of the business to the engineering team and working in partnership with the people that have the strengths to do the other parts, right? So I think that's just a wonderful set of validation around this idea that like you can be a bridge between go-to-market needs and the technology infrastructure, and then working with the people that have the know-how to sort of take it to the next level, right?
Even back to like my consulting days, they said like when we first joined, they said historically the roles have always been you're functional or you're technical and you pick a lane and you stay in it. But now like starting with my class, they were trying to emphasize the fact of like a hybrid role where it's like, enough to speak the language of the technical team, know the developers, etc. But like, why really become a niche in that department if like you have someone else who's stronger in that on your team? It's like being able to like kind of like swing the podium of like where the strengths of the rest of your team is. So like you get put in a situation, cool, I don't need to fill a technical role because we have a developer, or okay, we only have functional PMs. All right, I'm figuring it out. Like we're on the technical side. It's like that hybrid role where it's like you kind of are sitting in the middle and you have enough skills to like go either way is like, I feel like the new requirement like within the space almost.
What's interesting to me, because I started my career also in consulting, and in big consulting, it was Pricewaterhouse before the Coopers merger. And a lot of what you're saying, like I would almost echo back at you that I think for our listeners, right? There's trade-offs big in consulting. One of the big benefit is I think just you get exposed to lots of different environments, depending on what area you're in. Like you may be at one client, but you may be at multiple clients. But the other part that I think is really valuable is like they really will help you learn how to approach problems and think about things holistically and give you tools and techniques and ways to do that, right? So a lot of the things you've been describing is, roadmaps, et cetera. I bet you have templates or things that you used in the past that whether you have them or not, right? You remember how to use them. And I think there's a lot of value in that. The trade-off part is that like you work your tail off with, decent pay, but maybe not great pay, right? but it's so like if you're interested in learning a lot fast and having a lot of exposure and tools that you can lean on in future things, like it might be worthwhile to consider doing something in consulting. But just know that, yeah, your life will be consumed, right?
Yes. I really have only positive things to like speak to of the learning experience, like
Yeah.
within like you said, those frameworks, like I still use them today, where it's like going in your initial instinct, like starting in a job. If someone says like, oh, we want to build in Sales Cloud, here's what we want to do. You're like, okay, like, let me go figure it out. Like, let me learn everything I can about this solution. It's like, like consulting teaches you take a step back, you ask like, okay, what are you trying to do? It's like the analogy, like we were talking about in a like solution engineering class, is a lot of people will come to you and say like, I want a shovel, but what they actually want is a hole. And maybe there's a better way to dig that hole. It's like, you have to like take the step back. And I feel like that's what consulting teaches you to do. It's like, let's do discovery first. Let's ask a million questions that even everyone thinks they have the solution, but it's like, maybe you uncover that one reason why that solution actually won't work. And then you save time before you build out a huge solution, you release it and it doesn't work. So again, going back to that like framework, it's like, that is so important that you learn in consulting. I think it's just like asking those questions, doing that discovery before solutioning.
Yeah, no, I think it enables. Like, I think that's a critical skill for anybody in this role, because I think you like, especially if you're one of those people, and we hear about them all the time, getting frustrated with people come to us and ask us to do stuff, and they just don't understand, blah 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 blah. Okay, well, that's your job, right? Your job is to help figure out what it is they really want, right? They want a hole, not a shovel, and there are ways you can get there, or they're like, or maybe you're like, actually, you don't really want a hole. Here's this other thing you could do instead, right? And so to be able to be consultative, you have to be able to work on those kinds of skills of really understanding and guiding. All right, so we did talk a little bit about like the importance of technical knowledge, but like I think with your background, right, we wanted to talk a little bit about like as a marketing ops professional, how important is it to know, and how much should you know about Salesforce specifically? So just in general, right, like what do you think is the importance of knowing that as a marketing ops pro?
So honestly, I think throughout my career, like knowing Salesforce has set me apart for multiple reasons. Like everyone uses Salesforce. Like I feel the more I talk about, like the more companies you talk to, like everyone knows of Salesforce. Like not only like, okay, there's two aspects to it. One is like learning Salesforce is awesome because it teaches you how to like think about architecture, how to think about like processes, how to fit requirements into a system. And there's so many resources and certifications. So you're never alone when trying to like learn or solve a problem. So like the materials are there. And I would always recommend, like, it was critical for me to start out with that system and then take a step back. Like I said, when I was applying for those jobs, when Peter was like, do you know Drift? Do you know like Marketo? I was like, I promise you, I learned Salesforce and then I implemented it for enterprise companies. I can learn any tool. And so that's where it's like, pick a tool and like really get in the weeds and just learn about the integrations, learn about like requirements and translating them into like actual build. And I think I would say Salesforce is critical for that because like so many people use it and it's just such an easy one to start with because of all the like materials that are out there to learn and like get a sandbox and test it for yourself, like build like do a certification and then you have that on your resume to like build a career off of. Like the certifications are pretty well known in the sense of like when I've said in interviews like, oh, I have a Salesforce certification, they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like it feels like you see that they like,
sure.
Yes, they acknowledge that you like have that backing. So I think it's a great tool to like have in your arsenal for sure.
So I'm just, I'm curious because I think this would be, I think part of something important for marketing ops pros to really understand is actually not just the marketing, go-to-market motions and the activities, but also the sales ones for B2B in particular. So do you think like understanding, like is part of the understanding of Salesforce also understanding how the sales team works at an organization and how what you're doing as a marketing ops team is affecting the sales teams?
Hey everyone, Mike Rizzo here, CEO of MarketingOps.com and co-host of OpsCast. I've got a little secret to share with you, something that's been one of the best kept perks of our community until now. At MarketingOps.com, we've built a hiring program that's changing the game for marketing operations recruitment, and we're finally sharing it with the world. Our community is over 22,000 strong, and within that, we have over 4,400 members who are actively and passively seeking new opportunities. These are seasoned professionals with skills and experience spanning platforms like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and so much more. Plus, we can help you fine-tune your outreach, targeting exactly the right candidates by region, years of experience, seniority level, or even agency experience. But here's the real cherry on top. When you hire through our program, your new team member gets a free membership or a virtual ticket to our annual conference. From day one, they're not just stepping into a new role, they're getting access to the training, networking, and support they need to hit the ground running. So if you're ready to unlock this incredible opportunity, it's time to let this secret out. Visit marketingops.com and find your next star teammate today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep optimizing.
Yes. So even I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to in marketing ops, like even when you're doing the quick elevator pitch of like what you do, it's people are like, oh, everything like pre-Salesforce. But it doesn't just like stop there. Like it's like knowing like what happens after like informs so many decisions. Like if you know that like having enrichment data like on a certain field will inform a seller down the line and like help like get like a larger deal. Like it's like then you have the power to like add that information in earlier and then like get those requirements down there. It's like it doesn't stop when the data gets into Salesforce. It's like so many ways that like the sales teams work and like how sellers sell like will inform your decisions and like how you're pushing in those data, like what integrations you're choosing to use. Like even like as I said, like we do like roadmap of all these tools. So it's like as we hear of new features coming out, oh, I know sellers like it might not be directly related to like maybe what I'm doing now or like how I'm pushing data in, but it's like, ooh, someone on the sales side, this is an important feature for them to know that this tool has that maybe they want to integrate down the line or like add this feature into Salesforce. So I think it's so important to know like the full sales cycle and like how your piece fits into that.
I couldn't agree more. I see Mike
Hear,
nodding
hear.
his head vigorously too. So.
I'm like, yes, 100%. I mean, the feedback loop is super important. And I know I'm sort of beating the drum on this periodically, but I think it's worth continuing to do so. And I'm going to continue to advocate that in this broader opportunity to make RevOps, the term really what it is, right? This umbrella of these sales ops, marketing ops, CS ops, even other departments underneath it. But at a core, those three, I'm going to continue to advocate that a marketing operations professional is just really well suited to grow into that, because you should be looking at the pre-funnel, top of funnel, bottom of funnel, full conversion lifecycle analytics to understand how the data is moving through the system and informing the ability to close new business and upsell new business, right? Like we tend to have to, find those answers in the data on a fairly regular basis. And I think that a marketing operations professional can truly grow into a strong revenue operations role if that's what they aspire to do. Marketing ops isn't going to go anywhere from a vocational perspective. But if we were looking for if an organization is looking for who can be in charge of RevOps, I would say start looking at your marketing operations senior leaders in that category who have done what you're talking about, Hannah, right? Which is really look across the funnel and the business and all that stuff. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Here.
I'm gonna keep beating on that.
No, I mean, I think Mike, you mentioned like report. Like I know that one of the things that's helped me with, and I have no Salesforce. I don't have any certifications on any of these platforms to be totally transparent, but Salesforce, I definitely don't. And at the same time, I understand enough about how the process works, how the system works that when I've done reporting that looks across the full funnel, right, whether it's attribution reporting or things like that, I very often found sort of odd things coming out of the reports from what is going on within the sales team. And if it wasn't for understanding how that process worked, it would have I probably would have been just sort of scratching my head, but it enabled me to go then ask more questions about why am I seeing those things. And I've covered different examples of that, so I don't have need to do that. But I'm glad to hear that you think the same thing, Hannah, because I think a lot of people who are listening may not feel like they need to go beyond that sort of handoff between marketing and sales. And I think it's really important to understand that downstream and not only downstream, because there's I think it's not really a one-way flow anymore, right? It's like the buyers don't really move in a one-way process, right? They hop around, they move around. And so I think that's really important. So I know, I don't know how to get. So because of my sort of limited Salesforce knowledge, particularly when it comes to I remember I had to somebody on my team once I hired who had been a Salesforce admin, and it was great for me to learn some of the terminology about things and I can't remember what they are now because different roles are the rules about what you have access to and don't have access to. And I know there's more than one way to do that, but are there any recommendations for our listeners on if you're working with a team that is doing you're working on a project and you need to have something affected in Salesforce, some sort of change or update or process implications? What are some tools or suggestions you have for how we could do that and make it as smooth as possible with our counterparts who are doing the administrative work or even development work on the Salesforce side?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this goes back to getting to the why behind everything. So, as a stakeholder to the technical team, I always stand by you own the what you want to build and why you want to build it. And your technical team often owns the how we're going to build it. So I always think about this almost like when you're writing a prompt into ChatGPT, you're saying what you want to do, why you want to do it, put up as much guardrails as possible. So saying here are the requirement, here are some reasons, we can't do this, here's some fields, et cetera. And it's then hit enter and let the technical team build how they're going to get there. But as long as you have clearly explained the why you want to build this and the guardrails that are in place, then let the technical team build the solution. It might not be what you would have done. As a technical person, I'm ooh, I would have done that differently. But again, it goes back to they your technical team is the experts in that. They might have their guardrails as well. Ooh, we can't do this because of 8 reasons why in the system, the custom build, etc. So it's lean on the subject matter experts and own your responsibilities in that. So own the what and the why, let them own the how. Again, the shovel analogy, it's tell them what you're trying to do. You're trying to dig that hole. Maybe they have some equipment that will do it way faster. So
Okay.
just setting as much guardrails as you can.
So I'm going to push back a little bit because I struggle with this, right?
Yeah.
I believe, right, don't come with a solution, come with the why or the problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, especially if you know a little bit, right, do you think it makes sense to also at the same time seek to understand the why from the other side, right? So say I go to the Salesforce admin team, I want X, my goal is to do X. And in my head, I'm trying not to say, this is how I think that would work. And I don't, and they come back with something that's different than I expected. And in a sort of a material way, should I just accept that? Or should I try to dig further and understand their why?
Did it meet your requirements is what I would come back to, the solution that was proposed. Would it still fundamentally meet your requirements and answer the business why? And it's in that case, it's you might not, you might have built it a different way, but it's if it fundamentally meets the requirements, I would trust them. It's they're the experts in their area and you're the experts in yours. And so I would honestly like trust the business team. And there's definitely like a solution presentation meeting that like we actually used to do at Lucid, where it's like, because I was technical, I would love to like just hear what they proposed and why they did it, and like talk me through your process, like explain to me like why did we not do this, like, and then it was just like a learning experience for both of us, like whenever we would do that, because a lot of the times we'd catch something like, ooh, maybe this wasn't the right solution because it did not meet a requirement. In that case, go back to the drawing board. But a lot of the times they taught me something that I would not have known of, like why that was best practices. And so super informative to like have those like learning sessions for both sides, I think, before anything's released.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm thinking about some specific examples in my career where you could argue like I did a poor job of describing what I needed, right?
Yeah.
Although I would say it's a shared responsibility to make sure that is understood, right? They should be also trying to make sure they're asking clarifying questions and making sure that we're on the same page of what was required. But I also I really like working with teams like that who, let's say I ask for something and they're like, oh yeah, we can do that. It's going to take $1 million in a year to do it. I'm like, I don't have $1 million and I don't have a year, right? I have 100 grand and I have like 3 months. Like, what can we do that moves us towards that? And I want them to be consultative back to me as well. So like, that's part of why I'm asking these questions, is like, I would struggle with just accepting the $1 million in a year thing versus like a step in the right direction. Have you run into that kind of stuff before?
I guess there's a million thoughts going through my mind. So I'll start with like,
we've got $1 for every one of them.
Yeah. I think it depends on the deployment cycle too, which it's like, this is a pitch for like deploying things with like an agile framework where it's like, okay, like what is like the minimum requirements? Let's deploy this. Okay. It wasn't perfect. We need to modify it in next sprint, but it met acceptance criteria. Like, I think that's important to define, like in those initial like requirement gathering, like you set all the guardrails, et cetera. But like, what's important is like, what is success? Like define, like here are my acceptance criteria. When I hit enter, this populates in this field, like then that means I will give it the go ahead and we can deploy. Like as long as you define that and if it doesn't meet it, it doesn't get deployed, which is so hard for teams to swallow a lot of the time.
Sure.
Where it's like, this isn't met, but it's like, no, like, okay, we have to go through another sprint then. Like it did not meet the acceptance criteria, where it's like, I think that's so important. And that's why like I love deploying things with an agile framework where it's like, okay, what is the MVP? Like, let's keep iterating on this. Like, let's make some changes the next cycle. Like, how much budget do we have now? Like, there's just constant like improvement on the process when you deploy with that kind of framework.
Yeah. I'm trying to adapt to agile. I have a client who's like, we're doing 2-week sprints and stuff that I like, it doesn't really fit into that model in my head, but I see the benefits. It's just hard for me because I'm like, okay, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that makes sense. 2 weeks is like too short. But Mike, you were going to say something?
It's funny. Like in a sort of marketing practice, when I think about rolling into just like a traditional, for lack of a better term, marketing team, I particularly love waterfall project management just because I think there's a lot of dependencies and there are longer time horizons, and it helps paint a picture of, look, to get from planning a webinar to executing the webinar, there's a lot of steps that happen, and there's likely a period of multiple weeks for it, to even come to fruition, right? That's not to say that you can't chunk those things down into a sprint model after you've scoped out what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like doing a little bit of both. But I think when it comes to thinking through more of the product management lens on deploying technology and facilitating, different features and adoption of tools, I do think the agile framework makes a ton of sense because you're sort of operating more like an engineer in the sense that there are minimum requirements that need to be met in order to be able to execute and deliver, and that strict set of guidelines helps a lot, right? And I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth. Like even on a webinar, right? Like there's a minimum set of requirements that need to be in place before you can really launch the thing. And like if you don't have the speakers yet, you probably shouldn't promote it, right? But anyway,
a lot of the times too, like you're dependent on how the technical team is working. Like a lot of the times technical teams will work in that agile. So like, then that's beneficial, but it's like, if they're working in waterfall, like for your one task, they're not going to be like open to working agile. Like it's depending on how the technical teams are working a lot of the times. But I mean, Mike, to your point, it's like some projects you need waterfall, some projects you need agile, like when you're in the marketing side of things for sure.
I'm not sure I would go all the way back to waterfall. Like I think there's a happy meet. Like I think you need to just be smart about applying each kind of appropriately and being flexible. Like because I like the idea of early wins and getting something that is in the direction or a partial solution, learning from that and going like, oh, actually maybe we don't need the full solution. Like the 80% solution was totally fine and we're done, right? I think there's, or we go like, oh, we took a step. Actually, like we were way off on what we really needed. Let's roll that back and let's rethink the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I come from B2B software and project management. That was like my first gig. So I just have this affinity for project management and terms and thinking through waterfall versus agile and all that stuff. I'm not a certified PMP by any stretch. I just have a passion for the category, and I think in some cases you lose the forest for the trees in agile. It can be easier to like chunk something down. A webinar is a great example, right? If I was trying to do that in an agile framework and I said, oh yeah, I'm going to go build the landing page, and it's like, oh, I don't have any of the speakers yet, right? I don't have any of the copy yet. Like you have to have chunked it out so much that effectively you've created waterfall, right? Like I can't do this until this other thing's done. And it's not my job to get the copy. It's someone else's job to get the copy. And so it's just this like, to your point, both of you, it's a happy medium, right? Like you have to figure out how to work within those structures to make that a reality, right? And not lose the forest for the trees. So, anyway.
Could not agree more. So I like that you agreed with me. It's always one of my goals. All right, so we're running a little bit short on time. I do want to pick your brain a little bit, Hannah, on one last thing. So I think we've pretty much made the strong case that like it'd be valuable for people who are listening if they are not familiar with Salesforce to become more familiar with it. You talked about certifications, but are there how would you recommend somebody who maybe has just either slight or very little knowledge of Salesforce or sales processes for them to go about learning more?
So Salesforce, there's a great community, like the trailheads, like there's a million people that have experience that you could help. But like I personally, like when I was learning, I just did a million like trailheads. I got like the sales, like super badge. Like there's like a lot of like practical hands-on experience you can do there to like self-learn. A lot of experience, I will say, is like actually putting it into practice. Like, okay, when I had a client that would do it, or like you're in a job and then you have a use case from a stakeholder and then you're like actually putting it into practice. But like going through the trailheads, doing those practices gives you the experience to at least like know what the lead object is before you have to like go in and like deploy something.
Can we get rid of the lead object, please?
No.
She's at Salesforce. She has to say no.
I know. But can you get that on the roadmap though for us? That would be nice.
Yes. Okay.
That'd be great.
I'll put the request in. Don't worry.
All right.
And the last thing too around that is like reaching out to people in like the LinkedIn community. Like everyone is willing to share experience that I found, like whether it's like a problem you have, whether it's talking about where they learned, or just like giving you some examples of like applications. Like the LinkedIn community is awesome, or the marketing ops community is super cool as well for like learning.
So if I remember right, Trailhead, it's like their online, like, because I started at one point and I was like, it was more than I needed to do at the point when I started doing it. But I think, do you get like your own little environment you can play around with? Is that right?
They're called like sandboxes on some
Yeah.
of like the models. Yeah, you can like it'll start like an org for you and you can test it. I just did one like to launch my own like agent force bot on the website, which is super cool because it's like I am not about to get into production and like test around with something that someone else made.
Wait,
So
testing in production is not okay? What's wrong
no,
with you?
trust me, as an intern, I learned that one. But
Sounds like a good Moop story that you need to come share with us.
yeah,
Yes.
it was. Oh gosh, my team. Yeah, they all laughed about that now, not at the time. But it's okay. I'm fine now. I was employed afterwards. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Good. That's
But
cool,
yes,
though.
you can get your own sandbox, which is really awesome to like play, make mistakes. Like you don't even have to follow like the instructions. You can just get the sandbox and go mess around with like whatever you want to try there, which is like an awesome feature.
I mean, I do like that sort of combination of, I'll call it like in quotes, right, classroom work, right, where you're going through instruction stuff, but then actually application. I mean, I'm torn about whether application in a sandbox where it's like pristine data and you don't, you're not dealing with human behavior challenges, right? But at the same time, right, I think it's like actually going through the steps of doing it. That's a useful thing to do. So that's great. Any other suggestions for resources?
The biggest one, I mean, just the communities. I mean, the marketing
Okay.
ops communities have been my favorite. That's, I mean, obviously
Oh,
marketing
well.
ops and
Oh,
all
thanks.
the other communities there is out there. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
Hannah, I have to shamelessly plug that, like, if you have an appetite for wanting to potentially speak or join us at Mopsapalooza, like, please submit sessions. I'm not so much interested in the fact that you're at Salesforce and the label there, but more that you're doing the role that I am so excited about, like this idea of product management and marketing operations and that mix. At a bare minimum, let's go build a panel or something and host some web sessions and keep pushing this stuff forward. Like, we would love that. And then, if you know anybody that wants to sponsor our conference, go ahead and, just send them a little Slack. It'd be great.
There we
see what
go.
you did
Yeah. You plugged me and it's great. I'll have to help you out.
Yeah. All right. Mike, you probably don't want me on that panel though if you have that discussion, because I'll just undermine it all. I'll be the counter. I could be the counterpoint. How about that? I can play devil's advocate.
Yeah, I love that.
So no, at the same time, Mike, I actually agree. I'll walk the fence on that one a little bit. Right. On the one hand, I like the idea. On the other hand, I like it's as I usually am. Right. There's nuance.
That's good. We need all the different opinions to help round out all this stuff. I mean, we're a young vocational practice still. It's only been like a decade-ish, a formal decade.
It's true.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Got to figure it out.
Hannah, so much fun. Thank you for sharing. This has been a fun conversation. If folks do want they want to hear more about what you're doing or thinking about, what's the best way for them to keep up with you?
LinkedIn. I post a lot on there, and if there's any questions, I'm always happy to answer. Return the favor. People were there for me when I had them, so happy to help anyone.
Love it. Well, again, thank you, Hannah. Thanks, Mike, for joining again. I know you've had I'm sure you're still digging out. Thanks also to our audience for always continuing to support us. If you, as we always like to say, if you have suggestions for topics or guests, or you want to be a guest like Hannah, feel free to reach out to Mike, Naomi, or me on LinkedIn or in the community, and we'd be happy to chat with you about that. Until next time, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.